I'm continuing my preview of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, and his challenger Sergei Karjakin. And I'm looking back at some of their past games to try and find out what we might expect in the match in November. In the first clip, I looked at one of their early games, a rapid play game, where Karjakin outplayed Carlsen strategically. And I have a feeling that we're probably going to see quite strategic, attritional games in the match. However, both players can sometimes play wild games as well, and it's one of those kind of games that I'd like to look at now. So this is a game that they played together in 2007, so still teenagers, still quite young, and this was a blindfold rapid game in Bilbao. I mean, blindfold rapid, it's mad, but look at the quality of chess that they showed. So here Karjakin opened with his usual move e4. He does dabble with other moves, but basically he's an e4 player. That's where he feels most comfortable. And on this occasion, no e5 from Carlsen. He played the Sicilian. And very often Karjakin likes to play open Sicilians with d4, and very experienced and has a pretty good record with open Sicilians. But here he played bishop b5, which also, particularly against knight c6, has a very good reputation. Carlsen also likes to play this move. And now g6 is probably the most common move, but e6 also has a decent reputation, simply wanting to bring the knight to e7 to cover the knight on c6. But Karjakin decided to damage black's pawn structure straight away, and this has pretty good reputation. So now knight e7. This knight wants to come to g6 and then perhaps e5 to clamp white in the centre. And if black can achieve that with two bishops, hold the centre, get two bishops, then strategically he could be better. So white has to fight against that. So queen e2, he's looking to play e5 at some moment, perhaps, potentially. Queen c7. It's probably a bit too early to play e5. That can be broken down with knight g6 and f6, possibly even f6 straight away. So knight g5. Now this looks a bit strange to play the knight out to g5 so early on in the game. I mean, look, white hasn't developed at all on the queen side and is yet to castle. But the point is to try to attack black's centre very quickly by using the f-pawn, and if you can do that, then this could be dangerous. I mean, you can see that black also hasn't castled yet. So e5. So I mean, this is an ambitious way for black to play, and white has to react very quickly. So as I said before, black wants to play knight g6 and just establish a nice centre. So white challenges that straight away with f4. So it looks a bit like a king's gambit now, some similarities anyway. So if white can take quickly on f4, you could get a very strong attack very quickly. And what I like about white's structure is that it's very regular, very strong, very nice pawn structure. So if white can recapture on f4 successfully, he's doing pretty well. Knight g6 holds the pawn and prepares to develop. Queen h5, so suddenly black has to be careful. This is a threat already, and then f7 is can be taken. So that's why d6 comes to cover f7, and now bishop f4. And now black has to be careful. In a previous game between Grishuk and Shirov played h6. This is probably not good, because after knight takes, bishop takes d6, and that opens up this line for the rook, and white has excellent compensation for the piece. Again, this regular pawn structure really helps white in this position. But it looks to me as though Carlsen had done his homework and he took on f4. Now this gets extremely tricky, very tactical indeed. 3 white pieces attack f7. g6 looks normal. The queen comes back to f3. So still 3 white pieces attack f7. Now black is not castled. It hasn't got much development to speak of. But now, to me, this looks like a prepared move. Bishop g7 from Carlsen. I don't think he'd go into this line without looking at it carefully beforehand. And this is amazing stuff. So bishop g7, allowing rook takes f7, hitting the queen, hitting the bishop. I mean, this looks absolutely catastrophic. But watch what happens. Bishop d4 check. The king steps out of the way, and now queen d8. I mean, the fact that black can get away with this is miraculous. If we could swap around the position of queen and rook, then queen f7 would be mate. And in fact, that gives white some ideas. If you could just get rid of that rook, then queen f7 will be checkmate. But it's not that simple. The queen threatens the knight. And where can this rook go? Well, first of all, Karjakin deals with this threat to take here and plays c3. Why not? Kick the bishop. Let's move it back, and that gives white a bit more freedom. And here Karjakin played a very tempting move, rook g7. We'll look at that in a second. That's the game continuation. He should actually play h4. And after h6, then play rook g7. So obviously if that's taken, then queen f7 is mate. And if queen f6, as happened in the game, well, we'll look at that in a second, then white can take and play rook takes g6. So that's the difference, that the black pawn is on h6 and not h7, so white can get away with that, and white is probably slightly better here. And if rook f8, probably the game should end in a draw after rook f7, and the rook goes back, and rook g7, and so on. But instead, Karjakin played rook g7 straight away. And this looks very, very dangerous, extremely dangerous. In fact, in this position, if black plays rook f8 here, in fact, rook g8 is now a seriously strong move. I mean, this looks very nasty for white, actually. There's potential back rank. But now, rook g8. So there's a pin. And if, well, obviously if rook takes rook, then we have our desired queen f7 mate. That's the easy one. And if queen takes knight, then, well, white is the exchange up. That's probably good enough, and has connected pieces. And if queen e7, you can take, and white is a pawn up there. Should be better for white. So rook f8 is a mistake. Queen takes knight is possible, actually, and then white has enough for a draw like that, but no more. So queen takes knight is a draw. But instead Carlsen found queen f6, and this is very strong. This is really interesting. If rook takes pawn, then this is better for black. Threatening the knight, threatening this. And if check, okay, white doesn't lose a piece, but there's a mate threatened on h2. And mate threatened on e1. And white can exchange queens, but black has probably a winning endgame here. There's too much pressure. Bishop a6 is coming as well to threaten this. Should be winning for black. So after queen f6, Karjakin exchanged queens, and they played rook h7, hoping to escape into an endgame where he's a couple of pawns up. But now here's the brilliant move: castles kingside. It's hard to imagine this is even legal, but Carlsen had foreseen this move. So the knight is on, and of course if the knight retreats then the rook is on prise. And if rook h6, then I'm afraid the tactics don't work in white's favour. Rook f1 is mate. So Karjakin simply had to give up a piece. And now, well, Carlsen's technique was superb. First of all, let's get rid of that dangerous rook on the 7th rank. The bishop holds the pawn on d6. And here's a nice bit of technique. I mean, there's more than one way to win this, but this is very nice. Carlsen keeps it very simple, so he trades pieces, and after the bishop locks itself in on e5, everything is secured, and then the rooks are free to enter, and this of course is a completely winning position with the extra bishop in the middle of the board. No need to go through the rest of the moves. So great calculation from Carlsen. I know it's only a rapid play game, but still I thought a very intriguing little scenario we saw there. I'll be looking at more of their past games coming up soon.